Shunyavadi paschatesha tarine Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhayevacha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and a warm welcome to all of you to today's special festival with His Grace Pavan Nitai Prabhu, Pavan Nitai Chandra Prabhu, and Jai Gaur Prabhuji.
Jai Gaur Chand.
Acha, Jai Gaur Chand. Huh? So they all, as you know, they are living in Vrindavan Dham and doing this wonderful austerity of chanting and hearing and preaching.
The wonderful austerity is coming to Delhi.
And yes, they are undertaking this wonderful austerity for our benefit to come to Gurugram. And also they went to Delhi yesterday, did Harinam there. And tomorrow again they will go to Delhi for a festival there. So we're very grateful that we could make it today. And as you all know that we're also celebrating Gauranga's 13th birthday today. So everyone kindly repeat after me. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Gana Shakti Deha Kore Yena Chaitanya Varnana Jaya Jaya Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Gana Shakti Deha Kare Yena Chaitanya Varnana So I request everyone's blessings as I will attempt to today complete the remaining verses of the 6th chapter, The Glories of Sri Advaita Acharya. So last time we ended our discussion at verse 71. And we saw in the section that we discussed last time that how all the great personalities, starting from Lord Balaram and all of Lord Chaitanya's associates, the father of Krishna, the mother, the friends of Krishna, and including Srimati Radharani, what do they pride or how do they identify themselves as? Yes, as the servants of Krishna. And there's this beautiful verse, verse number 44 that we discussed, that Krishna dāsā abhimane je ananda sindhu koti brahma sukhe nahi tara ek bindu. It says a drop of the soul's joy. That when we compare the joy of being a servant of Krishna and identifying ourselves as a servant of Krishna, so that joy is so unlimited that the joy of the impersonal Brahman compares just to a drop of the joy that one feels when one recognizes oneself as a servant of Krishna. And it is the nature of the love of Krishna that it imbues everyone, whether they are superiors, whether they are equals, or whether one is lesser in the sense in terms of their age. So everyone is imbued with what? This dasya bhav. And we discussed that how all the rasas, what is the common element in all the rasas? This attitude of servitude. It's there in all the rasas. And we ended with this beautiful verse. Let us recite verses 69 and 70. Okay. Tancha katharahu Srimati Radhika Saba hoite sokolam se paramadhika Ten hoyan radasi hoya sevana charana Yandra prema gune Krishna baro anukshana. So Kaviraj Goswami says that what to talk about the other gopis who recognize themselves as the servant or the maid servants of Krishna. Even Srimati Radhika, who in every respect is the most elevated of all of them and who has bound Krishna forever by her loving attributes, what does she do? She serves his feet as his maidservant. Tanho yanra dasi hoina sevana charan. And in the next 3 verses, 3 or 4 verses, Kaviraj Goswami, he gives the examples of even the queens of Dwarka. Now these are, the queens of Dwarka. So much opulence. And how do they recognize themselves? In a similar way, just as the gopis and all the other devotees, they also the queens headed by Rukmini. Dwarkate Rukmini Adi Jotoka Mahishi. Tanha Rao Apanake Mane Krishna Dasi. And then he gives examples of 2 more queens. One is Kalindi. And she is expressing to Draupadi in verse number 74 that, who am I? I am but a maid servant engaged in sweeping the floor of the house of Sri Krishna. And similarly, another queen, Lakshmana, she is also saying that through austerity and through renunciation of all attachments, what have we attained? We have become the maidservants in the home of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is satisfied in himself. So this is the nature of their bhav. And now let's recite verse number 76. Anere ki kotha bala deva mahashaya Yanra bhave shuddha sakhya vatsaladi maya. So what to speak of others? Even Lord Baladev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is full of emotions like pure friendship and paternal love. And he also considers himself Tanho apana ke koren dāsā bhavan. Krishna dāsā bhava vinu ache kono jana. In 77 he says that indeed who is there? Who is there who does not have this conception of being a servant of Lord Krishna? So I know one person who's there. That is the speaker. So, we are trying, but we think that we are the controllers and the enjoyers. And that's why we suffer in this world. Because you see all these great personalities, they are so much in ecstasy all the time. Why? Because their nature, their swabhav is of dāsā abhiman. They take pride in that, and their whole consciousness is geared towards serving the Lord and pleasing the Lord. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that it is the singularity of the Supreme Lord that everyone in the spiritual sky thinks himself as a servitor of the Lord. According to social convention, one may be superior to Krishna, but factually everyone engages in his service. Therefore, in the spiritual sky or the material sky, in all different planets, no one is able to supersede Lord Krishna or demand service from him. On the contrary, everyone engages in the service of Lord Krishna. Now, Prabhupada says something really important. This is the purport to verse number 76. He says, as such, the more a person engages in the service of the Lord, the more he is important. And conversely, the more one is bereft of the transcendental service of Krishna, the more he invites the bad fortune of material contamination. So this is one of the things I mentioned last time, that who is great in Krishna's estimate? One who considers himself really tiny. Like one who considers himself a tiny servant of the Lord, he's actually great in the eyes of the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada says, conversely, one who's bereft of this transcendental service, what does he invite? He invites the bad fortune of material contamination. In the material world, although materialists want to become one with God or compete with God, everyone directly or indirectly engages in the service of the Lord. So even those who are trying to become one with the Lord or become the Lord, directly or indirectly, they are, what are they doing? Everyone is engaging in some sort of service of the Lord. And in verse number 78, he gives the example of Lord Shesha. And he has thousands of mouths. And what's he doing with those? He is serving Sri Krishna as a servant. And in 79, he also gives the example of Lord Shiva and his different forms in the form of Rudra. So as you all know, and you have, those who've been around in Krishna consciousness for some time, that Shiva Tattva is probably one of the most difficult subject matters. And even Lord Shiva has 3 levels of existence. So one is in the Paravyoma, in the spiritual sky, where he is Sadashiv. So he's actually he's an expansion of Mahasankarshan. So that is his, Vaikuntha form. Then he has another form, which is in the intermediary zone. Right? It is not in the material world, it is not in the spiritual world. So there is Lord Shiva's Dham, right, where he is known as Sambhu. Right? And he's also known as Sadashiv in that form. And so even in the Paravyoma and also in that intermediary zone, right, he is also known, sometimes interchangeably the names are used. And then he has a form in this material world. And here, the expansion of Lord Shiva, Rudra, it's mentioned, Ananta Brahmande Rudra Sada Shivare Amsa Guna Avatar Teno Sarva Deva Avat Amsa. So he's saying that Rudra, who's an expansion of Sadashiv and who appears in unlimited universes, is also Guna Avatar and is the ornament of the demigods in the endless universes. And he also desires, let's recite this verse. Tenho korena Krishnera dasya pratasaya Nirantara kohe Shiva Muni Krishna dāsā. So he also desires only to be a servant of Lord Krishna. Sri Sadashiv always says, Nirantara kohe Shiva Muni Krishna dāsā. And intoxicated by ecstatic love, Krishna preme unmata vivavala digambara. Krishna guna lila gai nache nirantara. So he's always in ecstasy. And by being absorbed in the love of Lord Krishna, and he's overwhelmed and incessantly dances without clothing and sings about Krishna's qualities and pastimes. So let us recite verse number 82. These are very beautiful verses. Now we'll recite the next 4 or 5 verses. Okay. Can you just help Sudeep on the Veda base to find these verses? Just help him. Adi Lila, chapter 6, verse number 83. 82, from 82 onwards, yes. So let us prayerfully chant these verses because they really capture the mood of what all the acharyas want us to aspire for. Pita mata guru saka bhava keno nai. Krishna premer swabhave dasya bhav shikorai. Eka Krishna Sarva Sevya Jagata Ishvara Arayata Shobhatanra Seva Kanchura Shri Krishna Avatirna Chaitanya Ishvara Atavar Shobhatan Hara Kinkara Keho mane keho na mane Shobhatar dāsā Jena mane tara hoy sei papanasha Chaitanya dāsā muni Chaitanya dāsā Chaitanya dāsā muni Tanra dāsir dāsā Chaitanya dāsā muni Chaitanya dāsā Chaitanya dāsā muni Tanra dāsir dāsā Eta boli nache gaye hunkara gambhira Shanake vasilo acharya hoina sustira Bhakta bhimane mool Shri Balarame Sei bhave anugata tanra hamsa gane Tanra avatara eka Shri Sankarshana Bhakta boli abhimana kare sarvashana Tanra avatara anra Shri Yuta Lakshmana Shri Ramer dasya tinhu koilo anukshana Sankarshana avatara karana bhishai Tanhara hridaya bhakta bhava anuyayi Tanhara prakash bheda advaita acharya Kao mano vakya tanra bhakti sadakarya Vakya kahe muni chaitanya anuchara Muni tanra bhakta mane bhava nirantara So in these very, very beautiful verses, so Kaviraj Goswami is now ending, he's towards the end of the chapter, so he's capturing all the essential points that he has made before. And he's re-emphasizing them, that Pita Mata Guru Sakha, all the emotions, whether those of a father, mother, teacher or friend, are full of sentiments of servitude. And he has said that before, and now he is re-emphasizing, this is the nature of love of Krishna. And he says that there is only one master who is worthy of service. And who's that? Krishna. And indeed, everyone is but a servant of his servant. And Shai Krishna Avatirna, that same Krishna has come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Otova Aru Shobha Tanhara Kinkara. So he's beautifully now re-emphasizing that don't think that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is just some holy person. He's who? He is Krishna himself. And he's come as Chaitanya Ishvara. And we all, everyone else, Otova, therefore Arushobha, Tanhara, Kinkara. Just like everyone is the servant of Krishna, so everyone is also a servant of Lord Chaitanya because they are non-different. And some may accept that, he says, and some may not accept that. But the fact is, he's saying, Shobha Tara Das. And Jaina Mane Tara Hoy, what happens? Shei Pape Nash. So when we don't accept that, then by our own sinful reactions, or sinful actions and their reactions, we end up destroying ourselves. And we end up destroying our true potential as the Jiva. So Prabhupada writes, actually, if a person does not engage in the service of the Lord, this is purport to text 85, all inauspicious activities encumber him because service to the Supreme Lord, Lord Chaitanya, is a constitutional position of the infinitesimal living entities. Because the living entity is infinitesimal, the allurement of material enjoyment attracts him, and he tries to enjoy matter, forgetting his constitutional position. But when his dormant Krishna consciousness is awakened, he no longer engages in the service of matter, but engages in the service of the Lord. In other words, when one is forgetful of his constitutional position, he appears in the position of the Lord of material nature. Even at the time, he remains a servant of the Supreme Lord, but in an unqualified or contaminated state. So we may feel that we are controllers, we may appear as controllers, but our position as a servant of the Supreme Lord does not change. And then this verse number 86 that we sung, this is a verse that we all must memorize this verse. So this one devotee friend, she shared with us that the first thing she gets up in the morning, she pays obeisances and she recites this verse to remind herself of who she really is or who she's really aspiring to be. Chaitanya dāsā muni, Chaitanya dāsā. Chaitanya dāsā muni, Tanra dāsir dās. So this is how Advaita Acharya, who is Mahavishnu and the teacher, this is his identification. And as he identifies and he proclaims this loudly by singing and by dancing. Eta boli nache gai. So it would be so nice that if we could do this, just sing and remind ourselves and take so much joy in being a servant and being ecstatic like Advaita Acharya. This is the goal of Krishna consciousness. To come to this state where we can all sing and dance and feel like Advaita Acharya as the servant of Lord Chaitanya. And then he reminds us that the source of this attitude of service is who? Lord Balaram. And all his expansions and everyone who comes from him, they are influenced by this ecstasy of servitude. Including Lord Vishnu, Lord Sankarshan, Lakshmanji, when he comes as Lord Ram's brother, all of them, they all are absorbed in this ecstasy of servitude of Lord Krishna. Now, he's going to reveal something really amazing. Okay. So he says that in 93, right, that's the last verse we sung. He says, Vakya kohe muni chaitanyara anuchar, muni tanra bhakta mane bhava nirantar. So Advaita Acharya, he is declaring, I am the servant of Lord Chaitanya, and this bhav is nirantar. Right? Eternally he is feeling like that. And it is by his grace that Lord Chaitanya actually descended to this world. So Lord Chaitanya comes once in a day of Lord Brahma. And how many years is that? Few hundred years? Few million years? Few billion years? So once in a Lord of Day of Brahma is 8.4 billion years. And if you consider that Lord Chaitanya appeared only 40 years ago. So it's just like, what fraction is it of 8.4 billion years? So how fortunate we are that we are in such, almost like we are there with Lord Chaitanya, practically. Because if you take 540 out of 8.4 billion years, it's not even like 0.000, I don't know how much percent it will be. It's a fraction of time when we compare it to 8.4 billion years. And we have access right now to the holy Dham, the places where he appeared, where, many of you, you're coming from Mayapur, Jagannath Puri. He appeared there. He traveled to so many places. And Kaviraj Goswami is reminding us that how with his body, Advaita Acharya, he served by offering Ganges water and Tulsi leaves. He called out in so much concern for the living entities. He was so concerned that the living entities are suffering in this world. And unless the Lord comes himself, how will these people be delivered? In chapter 3, verse number 98, Kaviraj Goswami says in a very beautiful verse, he says, Lok gati dekhe acharya karuna hriday, বিচার করে না লোকেরা খাই সহিত হয়. So loka gati dekhe, right? Acharya karuna hriday, seeing the state of the fallen condition of the living entities. The Acharya, Sri Advaita Acharya, was overwhelmed with compassion. And vichar korena lokera kaisha hito hoy. How will they be delivered from this terrible situation that they are in? And Prabhupada writes, this sort of serious interest in the welfare of the public makes one a bona fide acharya. An Acharya is one who feels for the compassion or the predicament of the living entity. You know. It says an Acharya does not exploit his followers. Since the Acharya is a confidential servitor of the Lord, his heart is always full of compassion for humanity in its suffering. And what is that cause of that suffering? It is due to the absence of devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, he always tries to find ways to change people's activities, making them favorable for the attainment of devotion. That is the qualification of an Acharya. And Prabhupada writes these few lines, these are like so hard-hitting. He says, in the grim clutches of Maya, the first-class prisoners of this material world wrongly think themselves happy because they are rich, powerful, resourceful, and so on. He says, these foolish creatures do not know that they are nothing but play dolls in the hands of material nature, and that at any moment material nature's pitiless intrigues can crush to dust all their plans for godless activities. So no matter how we may, strong we may be in this material world, just in a flash, everything could be over. Who knows, where the next missile or some crazy bomb would land. Is it going to see, is this, so-and-so person? It's not going to care. So just seeing the time, it's 1 o'clock. So this is how Advaita Acharya, he cried and he prayed and he served the Lord simply by offering tulsi with some Ganges water in his palms, and he would cry to the Lord to appear. And the Lord reciprocated with him. And it's so amazing. We get to understand the nature of God. When Krishnadas Kaviraj says, out of all the 3 external reasons, Krishna comes, or as Lord Chaitanya. What are the 3 external reasons? First is he comes to inaugurate the Yuga, Yuga Dharma of the sage. So imagine what an important mission that is. He's come to inaugurate the Yuga Dharma. Second is he's come to give Raga Bhakti, Chari Bhava Bhakti Diya Nachumo Bhuvan. He's come to give this ecstatic love of God so that everyone can experience that bliss and dance in ecstasy. And the third reason why he comes externally is because Advaita Acharya prays to Krishna. And he says, out of all these 3 reasons, which one do you think is most important? Which is the foremost of those 3 reasons why Lord Chaitanya comes? Everyone is convinced it's the third. Why is it? Yes, this is the nature. Bhaktabhyo Bhakta Vatsala. This is the nature of Krishna. His pure devotee's desire is so important to him. It's even more important than inaugurating the Yuga Dharma of the sage. So this just tells you the personal nature of God and how he is subservient to the love of the devotee. And he doesn't feel shy in proclaiming that. He doesn't feel shy, that, okay, yes, I've come to inaugurate the Yuga Dharma. I've come to give you this Chari Bhava Bhakti. But most importantly, why I've come is because it was the desire of my pure devotee. Now we have just a few more verses left. Hope to finish them in another 15-20 minutes and we will complete the chapter. Now we're going to sing this amazing verse number 96, where he is making this profound revelation. Okay. He says, sorry, it's a 96. Sorry, 99. So, which... okay, yes, 96, sorry. Ei Sabha hoy Shri Krishner avatar. Nirantara dekhi sobar bhaktir achar. So it says these are all incarnations of Lord Krishna. Yet we always find that they act as devotees. Their achar is of what? Bhaktira achar. And now 97. This is the revelation he's making. Ei sabka shastra kahe bhakta avatar. Bhakta avatar pada upari shabar. Ekamatra amsa Krishna amsa avatar. Amsi amse dekhi jashta kanishta achar. So he's saying in 97 that the avatar as a devotee of Lord Krishna, this position is above all incarnations. So the incarnation as an avatar who feels himself as a devotee of Krishna, Bhakta avatar, that is what? That is the highest of all. Upari Shobar. It is above all other positions. So Prabhupada writes, he says in this purport, he says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in different incarnations, but his appearance in the role of a devotee is more beneficial to the conditioned souls than all other incarnations with all their opulences. So out of all of Lord's incarnations, incarnation as a devotee is most beneficial, and it is also the most sought out by the Lord himself and all of Lord's expansions. And why is that? Why is that? We discussed in chapter 4 this point, and which he's going to reveal now. So he says that Lord Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and all others are his parts or partial incarnations. We find that the whole and the part behave as superior and inferior. And in verse number 100, he says that the position of being a devotee is higher than of equality with Lord Krishna, for the devotees are dearer to Lord Krishna than his own self. Atma hoite Krishnar bhakta hoy premaspad. So just imagine this revelation, that why is the position of the devotee higher than of equality with Lord Krishna? Because the devotees are dearer to Lord Krishna than his own self. So Prabhupada says the conception of oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is inferior to that of eternal service to Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna is more affectionate to devotees than to his personal self. He says in the Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.68, he says that the devotees are in my heart, sadhavo hridaya mayham, and I am in the heart of the devotees, sadhunam hridayam tva aham. And my devotees do not know anything but me. Mat anyat na tena janati naham tebhyo manak api. The devotees do not know anyone but me, and similarly, I do not know anyone but my devotees. This is the intimate relationship between the Lord and his devotees. So again, Kaviraj Goswami and Srila Prabhupada, they're bringing out the inconceivable nature or loving nature of God, and the intimate relationship and how Krishna views a devotee. So let us recite verse number 101. Atma hoite Krishna bhakte bado kori mane. Ihate bahut shastra vachana pramane. So Lord Krishna considers himself Atma hoite Krishna bhakta bado kori mane. He considers his devotees greater than himself. And in this connection, bahut shastra vachan pramane. There are many, many pramans that assert this point. And one of them is given in the next verse, where Krishna himself is telling Uddhava that, "O Uddhava, neither Brahma, nor Shankara, nor Sankarshan, nor Lakshmi, nor even my own self is as dear to me as you." Can you believe that? He says, not even my own self is dear to me as you, because you are such a great devotee. And now this secret which was revealed in chapter 4, that unless one is in the mood of servitude, they cannot relish the sweetness of Krishna. Even Krishna himself, he is so enamored by his own qualities, but he has a limitation. He says, how do I experience my own sweet qualities? So how is he going to do that? Huh?
Come in the mood of Radha.
Yeah, so he has to become a devotee. So the sweetness of Lord Krishna is not to be tasted by those who consider themselves equal to Krishna. It is to be tasted only through the sentiment of servitude. And this is the conclusion of all revealed scriptures and the realization of experienced devotees. But he says, Mudha loke nahi jane bhavera vaibhava. But the foolish, they cannot understand the opulences of devotion emotions. And all these great personalities, now he is concluding this chapter. He says that Bhakta bhave angikare balarama lakshmana advaita nityananda sesha sankarshana krishnera madhurya rasamrita kore pan shei sukha mata kichu nahi janeyan. So they don't know anything. All these great personalities, Baladev, Lakshman, Advaita Acharya, Lord Nityananda, Lord Sesha, Lord Sankarshan, they just are mad in the ecstasy of recognizing themselves as a servant of Krishna and constantly serving him with so much happiness. And now we are coming towards the end, and he says that Anya ka achuk kore apane Shri Krishna. What to talk about others? Even Lord Krishna himself becomes thirsty to taste his own sweetness. But even though he tries, he cannot do so without accepting the emotions of a devotee. So let us recite the next 3 verses. Bhakta bhava angi kale hoilo avatirna Shri Krishna Chaitanya Rupe Sarva Bhave Purna Nana Bhakta Bhave Koren Swamadhurya Pana Purve Kori Ashe Siddhanta Vyakhana Avatarer Ganer Bhakta Bhave Adhikara Bhakta Bhava Hoite Adhika Sukha Nayara. So Lord Chaitanya is going to appear in a few days, at his appearance day. And why does he appear? One of the main reasons is that he wants to relish this position of being a devotee. Because in the position of a devotee, he can relish the position of a lover, and he can taste his own sweetness, that he can experience his own qualities, and by doing both, he can experience the highest bliss that is experienced by his topmost devotee. Who's that? Srimati Radharani. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the 4th chapter, he explains this beautifully. He says, Shri Radhara Bhavelana Chaitanavatara Yuga Dharma Nama Prema Koilo Prachara Shei Bhave Nija Vancha Korilo Purana Avatare Rei Vancha Mula Karana. So in this bhav of Srimati Radharani, he fulfills all his desires which he could not fulfill when he appeared as Lord Krishna. He had 3 unfulfilled desires when he came in the form of Lord Krishna. And so he came in the form of Lord Chaitanya to fulfill these 3 desires. Those are the internal reasons, and then the external reasons we've already discussed. Okay. And then he just summarizes the glories of Advaita Acharya. He says that the glories of Advaita Acharya are boundless, for his sincere vibrations brought about Lord Chaitanya's descent upon this earth. And he liberated everyone by preaching Sankirtan And the people of the world received this great treasure of the love of Godhead through the mercy of Lord Advaita Acharya. He says, his glories are unlimited. He says, I have written as much as I know from great authorities. And he offers his obeisances to Advaita Acharya millions and millions of times. And he says, he begs for forgiveness. He says, please forgive me at my offense, at not being able to glorify you properly. You see Krishnadas Kaviraj's humility. And then he says, Jaya 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 Shri Advaita Acharya. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Arya. Jaya 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 Shri Advaita Acharya. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Arya. Dui shloke kohila Advaita Tattva Nirupana. Pancha Tattver Vichar Kichu Shuno Bhakta Gana. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Jara Asha. Chaitanya Charitamrita Kahe Krishna dāsā. So praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. So this verse concludes our discussion of the appearance of Sri Advaita Acharya, the glories of Lord Advaita Acharya. So thank you all very much for patiently listening and enthusiastically singing these verses. As I said, I just feel like when I speak, I'm just throwing sand in the sweet rice. When we compare the verses of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, how sweetly and how deeply and profoundly he has revealed the tattva of Sri Advaita Acharya and the glories of being a servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these are wonderful points that we can all contemplate as we approach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day. So thank you all very much for hearing again. So anything you'd like to share, Prabhu?
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. I don't have anything to say. I enjoyed hearing.
Hare Krishna.
So anyone